From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team. Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson, you are looking to dominate. And I have a question about why I would want to do this to dominate. So I thought, why not do this on Dominating with Dawson?
Wow, that's a lot more thought than I ever put into anything. So let me hear about it.
Well, this is why I asked the questions.
Okay, great.
Ben Dawson, why would someone look to rev out their engine?
Well, I'm here with Vicky, who builds all the engines.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. The only time I ever rev an engine out all the way, typically, is when I've been really busy doing other stuff, like passing 5 cars, and I'm like, oh, bop, 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 bop. What is that? Is that the rev limiter? And then I change gears. I'm not trying to be up there anywhere near the chip. Are you?
No, but there's a difference between, let's say, the Redline 6500. There's a difference between going to 4500 and going to 6200.
There is. That's right.
And yes, there's a fundamental reason why, and some people don't understand that. So I thought maybe
I got you. Well, I would tell you how many times I've been to a dynamometer that measures engine capability and power. That number is 0.
I'm right there with you. We're tied. Okay. We finally tied.
We have finally tied. So, Vicky, you're not building engines to send it to the dyno, right?
I don't have ability to get them on a dyno.
That's probably good, because once you do, you start doing stuff that makes them blow up. But typically, one of the things you'll find out from a dyno, somebody who's dynoed the engine that you race, even if it's not the one in your car, but somebody knows that a Miata engine makes its peak horsepower and torque. If it redlines at 7,000, a dyno test might show you that you're making your best power at 6,300, for example. I don't know exactly what it is for Miata, but it's important to find out. So you don't want to be running around racing your Miata, like Bill said, at 4,000 RPM if your peak power is somewhere closer to the red line. So you're trying to always be shifting gears and sort of staying in a gear that keeps you as close to that peak power RPM level as you can. There are going to be times when you're coming out of a corner and you're sitting there at 4,000 RPM, working your way up to the better power band. But overall, you're trying to rev your engine out to that peak power and not past it necessarily, unless there's a reason to kind of sustain that gear. But there's not a whole lot of point in going past your peak power level if there's another gear available and you have more straightaway. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I think that's what we're talking about, right, Bill?
Yeah. So if you ever shift to a too low a gear just by mistake, like especially on the street, and the car starts chugging, so the engine's not happy there.
Lugging, that's what we always call it. That thing's lugging.
Yeah, but as you go up through the RPM range of the engine, there's a peak for the torque, which is usually a little bit lower than the peak for the horsepower.
Yep.
And typically they're towards the red line side, not towards the middle.
Right.
So
pretty close to the red line, fairly close usually.
Yeah. So that's why you would want to rev the engine out to at or close to the red line, and not too far above. And hopefully you have a rev limiter, which prevents you from causing the little pistons and valves and springs to go, and then
that's not good.
I resign.
Yes, I have done enough for you today. I am doing no more.
Send my check to my home address. I am finished here.
Exactly. I have left the building. So that's what revving out the engine is meant for and why you would want to do that.
Right.
I'll also still go back to my answer that wasn't answering the question you were initially would. I did not divine the question you were looking for the answer for. But when I was talking about the fact that I don't ever hit the ship unless I'm real busy doing a bunch of other stuff on the track, is still answering the same question. Is saying like, I know, if I'm driving a car, I know where the best power is, and I'm trying to keep it around there. And if I'm hitting the ship, I'm like, whoops, I should have shifted gears somewhere. You know what I mean? Usually it's telling me that I need to make a shift. So that's what I meant there too.
Or if you're like 40 feet away from where you're going to be hitting the brake.
Right. Exactly.
You're just going to stay on the gas a little bit more, because I usually shift below the red line because I know where peak power is, and I kind of shift at or near there. And
right, that's what I mean. That's what I mean too. Yeah.
If I just need just a little bit more, 100 feet or some short distance, and then I'm going to downshift or brake or something, I may stay in that gear. But I'm usually fighting to get into those higher gears while staying at the high side of the rev.
You're right. There are times where it makes sense. It makes sense to dwell at the higher RPM a little bit more than you usually want, because it might not make sense to grab another gear because you're just going to immediately downshift and brake or something.
But you know what doesn't make sense, Ben? Banging off the rev limiter like 5 times. 5 times. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Change gears.
Yeah, exactly. If you hear it popping, go ahead and grab it. Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, that's a nice short Dominating with Dawson on revving out an engine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why we do it, and why we don't go too far, right?
Don't go too far.
Don't go too far.
Step away from the cliff. Step away from the cliff.
Now, as an engine builder, Vicky, do you have any notes to add to that? Like anything you want to tell drivers about how far to go and when to back down?
Yeah, don't go over.
Do not pass go. Do not pass go.
Do not pass go. You know what? just to be safe, try to get an idiot light in your car. That would be good.
What's that? What's that mean? Sorry.
It is okay. So get a rev light. So anybody else that's also driving your car, because obviously I'm all about car empathy. You will take great care of your car. You who built your car will take great care of your car. Anybody else that sits in that car will probably beat the crap out of your car. So
you seen that movie Fast and Furious? That's what they say. So they're sitting in your car. You say Fast and Furious? Let me check this shit out.
Dude, man, that car had 14 gears. I saw it.
So, make sure that you have some lights on there that your people that are driving your car that you work so hard on will be able to monitor what they are doing in your car.
That's a good point. Vicky, let me ask just to make sure I understand. We're talking about an idiot light. So you could get a gauge from somewhere like Autometer, like an RPM gauge that has its own shift light. Has its own shift light attached to it.
I'm sorry.
And, no, I'm not. Yes, so that's idiot light, shift light.
We call them idiot lights just as a because we all end up in the car and we all end up a little crazy in the moment. Sometimes we don't pay attention to our gauges. These gauges indicate to you, stop being an idiot.
Yes, exactly. I am often the very same idiot you're speaking of. So yeah, having that light go off and go, oh, hey, it's time to shift. You might not have that light because you can adjust where that light comes on in the rev range. So the light's not necessarily automatically going to be tied to the red line. So you can have your, say you built an engine, Vicky, and you're like, I'm trying to break this thing in this weekend. I really don't want anybody going over 6 in this thing. Because you know what's going on with the engine you build. You know why. Whatever reason it is, you know the why. You can also set the shift light to come on at 5,000 RPM in the engine you're running, because you don't want anybody to overstep and go over 6. So you have specific engine builder reasons that weekend, whatever it is, why we're arbitrarily saying, I don't want anybody going over 6. So I'm going to set that idiot light to 5, depending on your level of trust. If it's your teammates and they all have money on that engine, maybe you can tell them, we're only trying to go 5.5 this weekend. That's it. So I'm setting the idiot light at 5.5. And that's where you set it. And hopefully all those people who are, you know what I mean? We're talking about levels of trust, levels of skill. How many revs are you going to give these people who are driving your car? Maybe you built that Honda engine. That fucker can go $9,000 all day, but you don't trust anybody on the team except yourself. You set that idiot light to $4,000 and say, hey, we're not doing anything over 5. And it goes off at 4 and they're all worried, freaking out when it hits 6, but it could do that. I'm just saying, there's a range of possibilities you can control with that idiot light. And what you tell people is okay with that engine you built. Nobody's going to know.
Yes.
Only you turn the wrenches and only you know the reasons why. I'm just saying this for anybody who might be listening, Vicky, and anybody who turns wrenches on an engine and sets an idiot light. You get to make a lot of calls about what's healthy for that engine, and people have to live by it.
Well, not only is that, there was a team that had broken up, and they had a particular driver on their team who did not practice car empathy, and they would have to bring in extra engine because
No, fire that driver.
periodically he would blow that engine. And
Fire
he was
that
just
driver.
like, I don't know what happened. He over revved the engine constantly when he was in there. He drove it as it should not have been driven.
In the pursuit of fastest lap of the weekend.
In pursuit.
Jesus.
And they would have to, they eventually, well, that was one of the reasons why the team broke up. The guy actually brought the trailer in a good portion of their stuff, but they just couldn't afford to keep flipping engines. So,
well, that brings up an important question for me, Vicky. As an engine builder, do you do anything extra special to have that engine be extra powerful, past peak power to as fast as it'll go and spin before it breaks? Is there something special in that zone? Is that a unicorn zone of power, past peak power and top revs? Because It sounds like this person was trying to explore that zone as if it was going to crack the sky and he was going to suddenly be the fastest person on the track. But in fact, it's a known fact that high revs are not just going to, extra high revs over what the car's peak power provides. It's not going to make you any faster. It seems crazy to well, I mean, ultimately, I'm sorry that team broke up. But if it took them that long to realize the guy revving the car sky high and trying to be fast on merit of just, I make the most RPMs everywhere. That doesn't do it. That's so weird. I hate to hear that story. It makes me sad. Yeah, hopefully most folks out there will realize if you got somebody who's abusing the car in a way that makes you guys have to keep putting engine after engine in the car, I would say that the failing component is not the engine, right?
Yep.
No, it was an ongoing problem.
That's nuts. I would have had an intervention with that team. You could have zoomed me in for an intervention with that team way before that happened. I would have helped them out immediately. Like, hey, who's doing it? You leave the garage. You're out.
So as a friend of ours who builds many cars, as he has stated more than once to me, he's like, you set let's say the rev limit for the engine 6,500. You set the shift light at 6,200. You know what the zone between 6,200 and 6,500 is? That's the zone for the guy who bought the car or who owns
That's right.
That's for them to play with. And if anybody chooses to play with the car in that zone, they too will own that engine because they will be buying a new engine for this car owner.
You went from a timeshare to an investor.
Exactly. So follow the shift light. Ideally, before you even get in the car, ask the owner or the team lead or whoever it is what the shift light is. Also, ask if there is a rev limiter because there's a difference if there is or there isn't. And you got to be a little more careful when there isn't. And get a little mechanical sympathy in your life.
And that's a great point. And I know this is kind of going to cover some ground we talked about before, but when you sit down in somebody else's car to drive it on track and race it, there's a few things you want to know, right? Where do you want me to shift? What's my limit on RPMs? Don't even tell me what the red line is. Where do you want me to shift? I think that's the right thing to ask somebody when you're driving their car. Where do you want me to shift this thing most of the time? What's too much? Like typically, I want you to shift to 5,200. If you're trying to pass somebody starting down the backstretch and you run it out to 5,700 just to pass somebody a couple times in your stint, that's fine. That's the kind of thing you'll hear from a car owner who's pretty tuned in with the motor they built. You know what I mean? And you need to listen to them. You need to, I think other things, just while I'm on this little quick soapbox of what should you ask as an arrive and drive, when you sit down in a car to drive somebody else's car, I want to ask them, where do you want to see the water temperature when I'm riding around? Where do you expect that to be? Because sometimes the answer might surprise you. Sometimes they'll tell you, hey, we're running around running 210 all the time. Or they might say, we got a kind of cold thermostat. I can't get it over 170. Whatever it is, find out. Don't be surprised and be calling in the pits like, hey, is this okay? I'm seeing this kind of temperature. Figure out what your baseline oil pressure should look like. What should my oil pressure look like rolling around the pits? What should it look like under load when I'm out on track? I want to make sure I kind of got an idea because I don't want to, these are things that will look kind of weird here and there. So ask about it. Make sure you know what all the readings are supposed to look like at an ideal setting. And that includes your shifting. So something else to think about. But, where do you want me to shift this thing? What should your oil temperature look like, when we're hot? What should the water temp look like when we're hot? What should the oil pressure gauge look like, kind of loping around the pits versus blasting down the front stretch? I think those are things that you should ask somebody if they have that kind of instrumentation in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And especially if a gauge does not work.
Oh, yeah, especially because that will get you.
Hey,
why do you
want
have
you to
this
know.
Why is
this
on
one's
the
not
panel?
working?
Yeah, you're right. There's somebody who has a kind of fancy ass like long acre switch panel, and they'll have something on there. It's like diff cooler. Like, oh, so what should the diff be? Like, oh, we don't have that. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Oh, that gauge doesn't work anymore. That could be the difference between coming in for no reason whatsoever.
Well, yeah, totally. The time I drove the Knox Vegas low bars hoopsie corn, that fancy like Ken Block Mustang they cobbled together, I didn't do a good enough job of getting all that information. So like I go out there and I'm starting and the temperature keeps creeping up or something like that. I'm like, whoa, should I come in? Like, oh no, man, that thing usually goes like to this point. And I was worried about it being, kind of a more normal level. So yeah, you're right. I came in that race. I came in the pits worried about this one reading when I could have gotten a better idea from the owner before I went out.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in cars where the water temperature is 205 and it doesn't move. And I've been in cars where the driver, where the owner told me 235, 240 is fine.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the crazy stuff sometimes.
And I'm like, really?
Right.
So yeah, it's pays to know. Mechanical sympathy is a wonderful thing, people.
For sure.
Give it a try. All right, Miss Vicky. Now you know why I always say rev out your car.
Yes.
And listen to your engine builder.
That's right.
Also.
That's right. There's a point where going up doesn't help you.
No.
It
can only cost you.
Yeah, that's funny. It's this. I'll tell this one little thing. It sounds like we're better to wrap it up, but I was reminded, like back in the late '90s, like a NASCAR Winston Cup took a bunch of their stock cars over to Suzuka in Japan. That course in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it was like half American drivers and half Japanese drivers. And the Japanese guys are used to driving, equipment that revs a lot higher than American stock cars. Like American stock cars at that time, they rev higher now, but they were revving like 8,000 was it. And they were like, there's Japanese drivers out there revving them like 9,000, 9,500. Like, why are these engines still like blowing all the time? And they just nobody from NASCAR had done a good job of explaining only rev at this high. So it was funny to watch that race and the Japanese drivers just popping motors here and there, just like, well, because you can't rev that thing 10 grand all the time.
Nope.
Yep.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Thank you guys.
Good meeting.
Yes.
Good meeting. Don't blow up your engines or somebody else's.
That's right. Especially somebody else's.
People say, why are you like 2 seconds slower in somebody else's car when it's like a car that I have or whatever? And I'm like, cause if it breaks, I don't want to buy a broken car.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks
everybody. Thank you.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
So, Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when we were watching those WRL events and some of those Grid Life events where you used to see the in-car video and it had like the cameras seeing front and back, but it also could see all the telemetry and everything that was going on?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the ones that we liked were taken by the Sentinel system. Remember James came on our podcast earlier?
Right.
we have no excuse since he lent us one for trial and demonstration purposes. We should actually probably put that in one of our cars, maybe
I
two.
really think we should.
I think we should,
I know.
because then we'd look like the immature endurance racing team that we are. Oh wait, I mispronounced that, didn't I? Sorry, my bad. We could
So what does
have-
Sentinel system do?
We could have 3 cameras with picture-in-picture. We could have, if we ever get the aim system to work, open invitation to anybody from AIM to come on and give us a little bit of love. We need some help. And then we could have all our telemetry on there. And then we can have it streamed live into the paddock or around the world to our millions of fans. We're apparently very popular in Kenya right now. Don't know why, but that's fine. And it can integrate all the available race statistics from like Race Hero and everything. So we could actually see how we're doing on video. We wouldn't even have to carry around our phone anymore. Live.
I love it.